Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we've seen Alita Battle Angel.
Yes.
It's cyberpunk, it's action, it's produced, as the adverts will not let you escape from understanding, by the team behind Avatar. It's James Cameron. That's the name all over it, although it's directed by Robert Rodriguez. I think we've spoken before, maybe not on the podcast, but you and I have spoken before, certainly, about Robert Rodriguez having a problem directing women. And the way they've got around it in this is they've made it completely CGI.
The film is boring.
I could tell you were incredibly bored. I had quite a good time.
Yes, I could tell you had quite a good time. You kept laughing at things that I thought were boring.
I don't think it's a completely successful film, and I'm annoyed at the fact that it sets up a sequel. I think the story could easily have been told in one movie, and should have been. I'll give the sense of the film without spoilers. It's based on a manga series from the 1990s called Battle Angel Alita. I don't know it. But apparently it's been in development hell for years, and eventually it's been turned into a movie. You start off with Christoph Waltz searching through a scrapyard in the 2500s, set in the future. And he's obviously searching for kind of cyborg body parts. He comes out with an eye, and then he sees this torso and head of a girl. And he takes it with him and gives it a body. And there's this thing about how she has a human brain. It's not completely clearly explained, but I think it's explained enough that you understand that he uses the phrase complete body replacement, something like that. So the brain and the person inside it, I think, was a human, and the body around was replaced. One of the appeals and attractions of the movie is that this is a completely CGI character interacting with people.
Interacting with human
action.
Actors.
Yes, with live action.
And it doesn't work. It creates a big hole in the middle of everything.
Well, maybe. She doesn't remember anything. She wants to know kind of what her past is, where she came from. She's given this name, Alita, by Christoph Waltz. And there's a lot of underdeveloped world building. There's a stratified society. So there's literally a city in the sky, suspended in the sky, which you never get to see. There's the rich people seem to live there. It's it's like an Elysium type of thing.
Yes.
And on the ground they live in basically Digbeth, just scrap.
Digbeth with skyscrapers.
Digbeth with skyscrapers made of scrap. But it's like it's rather like Ready Player One, that sort of thing. And there's a suggestion even of a world kind of slightly under that at one point. But and there's a thing about how people want to get into this great city. You can maybe buy your way there. There are kind of sports. This blood sport called motorball that kind of keeps people
based
happy.
On roller derby.
Yeah, that kind of keeps people happy. It's like it's basically a load of robotified people
skating,
chasing
fast.
a ball around. And in the kind of professional version, there's an awful lot of violence, like NASCAR, that sort of thing.
Yes,
and so
this affectless violence, really.
So that's she wants to find out who she is. Things start coming up from her past. People seem to know people. Everyone has a relationship with someone important, and so it sets up a mystery. And that's
you're missing out the important thing, which is she falls in love with this teenager.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
who's a bit of a thief, who's stealing cyborgs' body parts for resale, so he can get enough money to go up in the world, to the world above.
Yeah, that's right.
Which he doesn't understand. It's a big con anyway, because nobody who's born in the world below can ever go in the world above. So
he's played by Kian Johnson. He's called Hugo, and she's kind of motion captured, and played by Rosa Salazar. I said to you during the film, when they're kind of falling in love, I said to you that actor is the bravest actor. He's got the most trust of anyone I've ever seen, because you have to have a lot of trust as an actor anyway when you're playing green screen, that sort of thing, that they're not going to make you look stupid. But to play a developing love with a completely CGI character is
he's very good.
I think he's very good. Except right at the end. But I'll just say that's the end of non-spoiler territory. We'll talk about spoilers now.
Well, let's not waste too much time on this, because unless kind of you want to argue, because I just thought it was dull, really.
Yeah, I know.
The world wasn't visualized very well. kind of, you can see how they were attempting for kind of arresting images, but really they're all ugly and overdone and kind of militaristic, and they have no grace really. You feel no affection for any of those machines or cyborgs, and there's no human connections made, which you expected there to be between Jennifer Connelly and Christopher Waltz, who play exes after all,
exes who've lost a child.
Who've lost a child. Right, and so this is meant to be like kind of an adopted daughter, at least for Christopher Waltz. But really, kind of, you're made to feel nothing. There's a real deadness at the center of this movie, emotional deadness.
I think you're right. There is an emotional deadness. There's a lack of feeling in everything. You should feel for Christoph Waltz and Jennifer Connelly. You should feel for the romance that develops between Alita and Hugo.
Yes.
And you don't. And then when he dies at the end, I felt nothing, and that's where I thought the actor was weak as well. That's where I thought he was giving nothing. And actually, she's emoting so much in that. She's crying and her face is contorting, and he's giving nothing, and he's about to die.
But actually, I think he can't give much because the role is played so stupid and it's so badly written. So they've just declared their love 5 minutes earlier. She saved his life 5 minutes earlier, and he's going up the ramp to another world without even telling her. So, you're already kind of outside that, because it's ridiculous. If you love this girl so much, at least bring her with you or have some emotional thing. It just feels like he's leaving her behind. So actually, you can't have that much affect. You can't feel much for him. Subsequently, it's very badly written out.
I think it's badly written out. And as I say, I think this is a film where you can tell this story in its entirety in one film, and they haven't done that. They've set up a sequel where she's going to go into this upper world, this supposed heaven, and take it down. I think you could have done that in this film. I wanted to see that in this film.
Yes, it's a lot of money down the drain.
But...
Yes, let's explore the buts. I mean,
with its problems, there were lots of things I liked, and I had a good time throughout. I think it's...
So let's explore that. So kind of, I heard you laugh many times. So kind of, what were you responding to that I was missing out?
Well, I can't remember specific jokes, but there were jokes that I responded to, and they were just little chuckles. Nothing was like uproariously funny, and some of them weren't even jokes. They were just kind of absurdities or whatever. But I liked them. I liked completely how it looked. I'm not necessarily talking about... I think you're right when you talk about the way the world being visualised is poor, but blank. But I like the look of the character, and I like the way she fits into scenes. And right, I mean, actually, in a way, it's not all that advanced, because it really reminds me of a film called... It reminds me of the Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, which I doubt you would have seen.
I don't remember it anyway.
It's from about 2002, and it's based on a video game. Actually, it's based on a video game series, because the story doesn't have any relationship to any of the games, but it was just it was this supposed video game movie, and it was touted as the first realistic CGI people in films. It wasn't. They weren't. You could completely tell, but nonetheless, I like the way it looked. And in this has the same sort of thing where at no point are you convinced of the kind of her realism within the scene, but I didn't mind that. Actually, there was a slight cartoony aspect. I mean, she has these huge manga eyes.
She reminded me of a Margaret Keane painting. You know that Tim Burton film, Big Eyes?
Big Eyes. Yeah.
She looked like one of those characters.
Yeah, and like I say, you see big eyes in manga and anime. An awful lot.
Yeah, but this was like really exaggerated. This was more like a Margaret Keane painting.
Well, I suppose in combination with how realistic the rest of her is supposed to look, the big eyes really stand out in her design. That's true. I like the way she moves. I like the way she interacts with the world. I like her energy. I think the film has a lot of energy, and it all flows through her. Everything's kind of new to her, and she wants to do things. She wants to constantly get into fights, and she has these instincts. And that also kind of, she's very good at that because her past. She knows all these martial arts techniques from 300 years ago, before this Great War. That kind of
can only take you so far. I mean, I
know, but I think the world building is poor and the history is poor. I wanted to know more about the war. I wanted to know more about the she comes from Mars, they're on Earth. I wanted to know more about all that, and it doesn't do any of that. It assumes a lot. It just says, this was a war that happened, there's a city in the sky, the tropes. And I found that very weak.
The thing that I wanted to get back to, which was her eyes, because it's not just that they're big, but also that they look so sad. right? So it's just kind of it's an odd look for the heroine, because on the one hand, you know, she's meant to be like this vibrant, energetic teenager, you know, finding out about herself and seemingly finding out the power that she really has, and actually that she can also have more power with a different body, right? There's meant to be an energy in that, and there's meant to be a wit and a humor and an excitement. I just don't think it's fully realized, and I think her look, which is also interesting, because you see, had it worked, if you have like those big sad eyes, and then the forward motion of like, you know, the glee of discovery of power and body and so on, you know, that potentially is something very interesting, but actually it just falls flat.
I think it largely falls flat. I'm not sure it entirely does. I think there's an interesting commentary, although it's not entirely realised, on transgender experience in there. There's a thing about how the first body that she's given is the body of like a 14-year-old girl, and she kind of knows that she's not happy with it. And actually, when she discovers in this crashed spaceship this kind of warrior body, she knows, I have a connection with this. There's something, and it turns out that it's because she used to be a warrior, so she really feels a connection with this thing. And when she's eventually connected to and put into it, she comes alive and she's leaping from rooftops. And it's a little bit of a leap, and it's a very kind of broad analogy, but there's something about how in I think some transgender people's experiences of kind of finding their way into their, like, it's about kind of not being born into the body that you feel is yours, and when you can, you know, people go through kind of gender or hormone replacement therapy and surgery sometimes, and the closer someone can get to inhabiting a body that they feel is theirs, the happier, the more elated they will be. And obviously it's a broad analogy, but in this, I think you get a sense of that elation when she realises who she is, and then the power that flows through her. I think there's something in there, because then there's also the thing that happens when, just after that, she reconnects with Hugo and he sees her new body, and they kiss on the rooftop, and then she says something like, you know, it's not a problem for you, because he's a human. She says, it's not a problem for you that I'm a robot? And he says, you're the most human person I've ever known, something like that. And I think, again, that speaks in a reasonably broad way to again, a kind of transgender experience of feeling different, not fitting in, your body being a kind of obstacle to connecting with non-transgender people, maybe.
I see what you're saying, but I don't think the film delivers on it. And actually, because, you see, my first thought going into that, oh, how interesting, because when you see this super body, yeah, that's the latest technology, but it's from the past, and it's laid out, it looks like a man's body, yeah? It's really muscular and broad chest and so on. And then actually, as soon as she inhabits it, you know, it's pictured once again as a female body.
It reconfigures
soft and round, right?
To what she thinks of herself, her body, her self-image.
Yeah. So, you know, if there's that idea of kind of, you know, a transgender experience of, you know, inhabiting the body that you imagine for yourself, then actually the film doesn't deliver visually on it.
Surely you're arguing that it does, because she literally configures her body to what she thinks, to what she believes herself to be.
But her body, her body. So once she's sliced and then she's sewn into this other body, right? After she's sewed in. When you see it, it's really no different than her initial body. Yeah, it doesn't look different. Well,
it's not entirely. They do make mention of the fact that it's a little older.
You know, they make mention that it's older and that it's more powerful, but visually, it's rendered the same.
Well, no, that's the point. It's not. You know, she is physically more mature in that body. She couldn't reconfigure the first body because it's just
meant. Like, let's be clear, right? She obviously feels different in it, and they're telling us, right, that, you know, it's the body that she's meant to inhabit. But what I'm saying is that when you're shown the body without her in it, it's a male body.
Yes.
Yeah, when you're shown her sewn into her body, into this male body, it's once again depicted as a female body. So, you know, the film kind of backs out of that potentially kind of very interesting transformation.
I'm not sure what you're arguing there. I'm not...
Okay, well, let me be clear.
Yeah.
When you see the body visually, and you're told this is like this powerful body and she wants it, it's depicted as a male body.
Yes.
Yes. When she's sewn back into it, when her first body is sliced,
Yes.
and then she's sewn into this incredibly
the new body
powerful
changes,
body.
The new body changes to become female looking, become
Yes.
a female body. Yes.
Yes. So you're shown her having this power, and she feels more at ease in it. But actually, the way that the body's visualized is no different. It's still visualized as the same type of female body that she had before.
Well, then I don't know what you're arguing. You're just saying you're saying that it should be male, or
well, I think it would have been more interesting if they would have shown her sewn into a male body, which is what it's initially shown.
I think you're inventing your own movie there. I think what it does show is interesting because
no, I'm not inventing my own movie. I'm extrapolating from what you were saying about a transgender representation, experience, dysmorphia, finding your real body, and that your real body is other than the one you initially started with.
Yeah, but I think you're actually taking it a little too literally or too basically, because you could look at it another way, which I do, and say that when she is connected to this new body and then reconfigures it to look exactly how she feels she looks, kind of subconsciously, that is the kind of fantasy of a transgender sex change or whatever, to have a body that exactly replicates what you feel your body should be. That's the kind of fantasy.
But then your transgender argument falls apart, because her body starts off as the body of a female teenager, and actually at the end it's pretty much the body of a female teenager as well.
But it's not about just what it looks like; it's about what it can do.
For me,
she has this connection.
Okay, so we agree with what it can do changes, but actually the way that it's visualized doesn't. And to me, that is an issue. If you want to take further, kind of this argument about a transgender experience.
I'm just not sure it does, because I did say it's a broad analogy, but I think the analogy is operating on this level of identity. She has a body that is a 14-year-old girl's body at the start, but she doesn't connect with it that much. And when she discovers this new body, that she and then the doctor refuses to sew her into it because he's kind of scared of the power it could unleash, because it's a warrior's body. She's incredibly upset about that, but it's not because of what it looks like. It's because of the connection that she feels. That she says, "I can't explain it."
I get that.
I think that's why it's an analogy. It's poetry, man. It's poetry.
Well, listen, I think the film would have done that much more powerfully if it would have kind of made the body seem masculine.
Okay, well, we can disagree on that, because we just do. I would have liked to have seen less swearing in it.
I didn't even notice any of the swearing.
There's one use of the word fuck. There's one or two kind of shits and craps and things. Like, it is like, and I normally wouldn't, I wouldn't be bothered about that sort of thing. It's not. I don't think I'm a particular prude about that sort of thing. But I think there is a kind of.
You are a bit.
Maybe I kind of come out going, I don't know exactly actually what sort of age this is aimed at. It seems very clear if you take away the swearing and maybe a little bit of the slightly gorier moments, because there are a couple. You go like, this is very clearly aimed at a kind of tween audience, kind of young people growing up and discovering themselves. Like, the romance in it is a young person's romance,
yes.
And the big fight is a kind of young person's big fight, and the discovering the world is a kind of young person's discovering. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has all that, but there are just one or two kind of elements of slightly more aggressive or violent things that I felt was slightly out of place. It was weird to me. I just felt it was unnecessary, to be honest.
Well, the film is off kilter on so many levels, and that's part of it, right? So it's true. The emotion, the girls' emotions are all at tween girls' emotions that we're seeing, right? So which kind of doesn't quite match up with the violence of the world, and actually with the sentimental. I mean. Okay, so maybe the world is one thing, because, I've seen other mangas, in fact, where, teens, unravel in a very violent world. But their sentiments are pure, and they're not just towards one person. It's often towards family or parents, or they make best friends. There's an emotional world that's kind of a context for this, and this lacks it completely.
I think it lacks a lot of it. But I think something that's successful. I kind of like the fact that it's actually none too subtle in some of those things. I kind of I think it's completely it's very easy to disagree with me on this, and I would kind of expect you to. I like the fact that people just really say what they mean in this and speak openly about their emotions. I think that's another indication that it's speaking to a younger audience. That people pretty much say, "Here is how I feel."
Yeah, but actually, it's completely unmotivated. So, for example, Jennifer Connelly's turn at the end. Where the fuck does that come from?
Yeah,
like absurd. Right, like, I mean, you wanted more of that kind of, Mahershala Ali's turn. That's visually fantastic, but again, kind of, where's it coming from? I mean, I don't like it
what
at all.
turn? Does he turn?
He's got that wonderful moment where you realize that he's just a vehicle for someone else, and his eyes turn blue.
Yeah.
Right. So. But that could have been textured in with the emotions of the person who is really a vehicle, who's really has been a slave to this person who's controlling him from above. There's so much kind of, emotional kind of potential, or the potential for emotional complexity in that character, and it's just nothing.
Yeah, maybe. I think he does have that moment.
It's just an image.
He has that moment about talking about how he'd rather rule in hell than serve in heaven, which is why he doesn't go up to the higher city,
Yes.
But I agree. I mean, that could be more complex. But I think his performance is very good. Right at the end, where Alita sort of has him on his knees, and she says, "I want to talk to the boss behind you," and his performance, the way he brings out the boss.
That's the one
wonderful.
moment that I felt he came alive to me.
Yeah, but it was very good.
Yes,
it was very good.
But that was it. And he'd been on screen now for 45 minutes before he had that moment.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think the storytelling is poor. I mean, I think we can probably agree on this,
yes.
right? Like I say, I think you can have Alita go up to the city in the sky and take it down the way that she's going to in a future film.
Yeah.
I think you can have that in this film and have just a complete story. I don't think you need this cliffhanger or whatever about how it's going to develop. I think I was annoyed by that. I wanted to see that in this film. I wanted a complete story, and I think all of this kind of world building is too empty.
It's very poor storytelling.
I think the action is very good. I
think the action is almost good, except because you're not emotionally invested in any of these people. You really don't much care whether
I was emotionally invested in Alita.
Well, I wasn't.
And, I wanted her to win, and I wanted her to realise herself and all that sort of stuff. And I wanted to, when she goes into that bar with all the mercenaries, or the bounty hunters, and starts a fight, you're going like, oh, this is exciting, and I wanted to see what happened, and I knew that she was going to take everybody down. I wanted to see how. I found then there's the roller derby, murder ball, whatever, fight, sequence. I said to you beforehand, I would have liked to have seen this in IMAX 3D. Which we didn't get to. We just saw it in 2D, and I'm not going to go back and see it in that. But I wish I had, because I think it would have looked even more spectacular. I liked how all that looked.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I did think that some of the moments and the way that they depicted the action, when the bad guy does the tentacles thing, I thought that was like very well realized. But I did still feel kind of emotionally uninvested. Really, you think, they're all cyborgs. They don't really die anyway, and it's just CGI. So and actually, in a way that doesn't matter, because you can be very identified and emotionally attached to cartoon characters, right?
Yeah.
So it's not per se that they're CGI. It's just that they haven't been created in a way that I found involving, and I wasn't involved.
Yeah.
And if you're not involved with the character, then it's very difficult to be involved in the action.
Yeah, that's all fair enough. Like, I can't really disagree with it. I couldn't basically recommend that people see it.
Yes.
But I also have to tell you that I had a good time, and I liked Alita, I liked the character, and I liked the romance, and I liked all the tween stuff that this was supposed to be, and those tonal mismatches made me a little uncomfortable, because I just thought this is like. But then this is not the only film I've seen that in. When I talked about the swearing, this is not the only film. Like, it happens in Marvel an awful lot. There's really kind of free swearing in those films. I'm thinking, who are these aimed at? Are we just now? Is everyone just swearing now when they're 12?
Well, if you walked on the street, the answer would be yes.
I know, but yeah.
But I don't know. I mean,
films aimed at 12-year-olds didn't used to have swearing.
To me, I didn't even notice, to be honest. I mean, my main problem is that it was dull, and because I don't know why, but I kept thinking, It's a James Cameron film, right? I thought it was a James Cameron film. And I was going, And then actually when the credits came out and it said Robert Rodriguez, it kind of made sense to me, because I think the last Robert Rodriguez film that I really liked was Spy Kids 1.
You like the Sin Cities, didn't you?
I did like the Sin Cities, actually. So were they after Spy Kids?
Yeah, I think so.
So actually that makes sense even because, what I loved about Sin City was the look of it. And actually kind of, this did look very interesting, though not as interesting as Sin City.
And actually it has the worst part of what James Cameron brings to a film, which is his writing. He's got a writing credit on this. And he's not much of a writer. You only have to watch Avatar to be aware of how lost he can get in his own crappy writing. So like I say, I can't recommend it, and you definitely don't. But I had a good time, and you sometimes you have to keep two sets of books in your life.
Yes, well, I mean, my thing as well. You have to be honest about your responses, and mine was just that I found it really dull. And actually I kept looking at my watch, which. I don't often do. I mean, I think I'm very open to most things, and I don't expect anything to be perfect, and I can take pleasure in kind of different kinds of things. I mean, even costumes or something. But actually, kind of, once you experience the look of the place, which is pretty fantastic, but then they don't do much with it. So actually, and to me, that was all that I had to recommend. I admired certain things. Kind of initially, the look of Jennifer Connelly. You think, oh wow, she looks amazing, and I mean, there's been a lot of attention paid to the looks of things, right? So there are moments where Mahershala Ali looks, amazing with those blue eyes, or Jennifer Connelly has like this kind of wonderful black dress and she looks amazing, kind of just walking, right? Also, Ed Skrein looks fantastic. In this kind of, with his beautiful face and the cyborg body. Yeah, kind of, it's very arresting. But again, that's like, the first image is you go, wow. And then what do they do with it? What purpose does it serve? How is it expressive? How is it kind of like related into a character and relationships between, all of that is nothing in this film. So kind of dull.
Yeah, and I'm not bothered about the sequel.
No.
Assuming there is one. It's just, yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. So,
disappointment, Alita. Really. I liked it, but I didn't. There you go.
Okay, good. So we'll stop arguing. We're going to agree there.
And I'd say just stop swearing so much in kids' films, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
just fucking...
Yeah.
Stop
fucking swearing.
Stop fucking swearing so goddamn much. Just, are these aimed at kids or not? It's confusing to me. There you go.
All right.
Yeah, go on.
We are eavesdropping on the movies, and we are on...
SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, and Facebook and Twitter, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much for listening.
Bye-bye.